Welcome to the Sacred Dance Summit. I'm your host, Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance, Sacred Dance as a Path to the Universal Dancer. My guest today is Angela Roberts. Angela Roberts, aka Sweet Fire of Grace, is a flourish with ease, stress relief, and sustainable living guide with 16 years experience, natural rhythms life creation coach and conscious dance facilitator trainer, professional dancer, choreographer, and artist, and creator of Wisdom Through the Wild and Beyond classes and events. She is emerging in the Women Rising movement as a dynamic leader dedicated to honoring and restoring humanity's connection to the body as temple of divinity and the ancient wisdom pulsing through the body of all creation so we may live in greater harmony with all that is. She is passionate about discovering and sharing pathways to support the liberation and sovereign empowerment of women and those who are marginalized, to nurture the fruition of the soul's divine creative purpose to manifest a more loving world that honors the divinity in all of creation. As a flourish with ease stress relief guide and natural rhythms sustainable living coach, she helps people break free of detrimental and unsustainable work chronic stress patterns that create unnecessary illness and disease and allow people to pursue their heart's desires with greater joy and ease. Working in holistic spas and healing centers, she's helped thousands of people find their unique pathway from exhausting burnout and distress back into a place of ease and restoration. As the Natural Rhythms Dance Facilitator trainer, she provides the support and tools to assist women leaders to use the power of sacred dance to transform the lives of others and claim their place within the feminine leadership revolution so they can make the positive cultural change impact they're inspired to do. Welcome, Angela. Welcome to the Sacred Dance Summit. So happy you could join us.
Thank you so much for this invitation, Leslie. I know that you previously, already knew my mentor, Lisa Michaels, who created the work that I do. And it was wonderful to learn about you. I got your book and I dove into it and I realized the similarities of the beauty of our journeys. And so I'm excited to learn more about that as we get to know one another. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to engage in this conversation about the art and the power of sacred dance. Some of you who are joining us, I'm not sure if you're just attracted to what is sacred dance or if you're already a sacred dancer, but I'm really sensing that people who are interested in sacred dance feel the chaos in the world and are struggling personally with it and feeling disempowered to make any change in the world, and that they also could be leaders who have people that you serve who are greatly suffering. And I think that some of us, even, you may be feeling the despair of our disconnection with nature, our disconnection from what's sacred in life and taking care of the earth and some of those really important things that we need to do to have a better world. And so maybe you're attracted to come here and chat with Leslie and I because you feel in your heart that sacred dance, there's something here. There's something here that can help with this problem. And I want you to know there is, without a doubt. And I'm excited to share all about that and for Leslie and I to chat with you about that.
Thank you. That's a beautiful way to put it and a nice calling. I think that, yes, I hope there are people that maybe have never experienced sacred dance before and that they will be inspired to do something because it's very transformative. Maybe you can tell us a little bit just about how you got into dance to begin with. Where was the opening for you?
Well, I was a very hyper child, very ADD. I've got the hunter's genetics, and so I need to be in physical movement. I grew up on a ranch living in nature in Utah, and I had a mother who loved dance, and she put myself and my sisters into dance classes, at the age of 3 or 4. And I was so enthralled with, oh my gosh, I can tap, I can express myself. And all of a sudden I had this really exciting thing that I could participate in. And I studied all different types of dance from a very young age in that, and performed in the Nutcracker from the age 5 on, and really got into performance right off the bat. But I also did a lot of social dance because my parents loved square dance. I lived in the middle of nowhere, right? And there wasn't much to do but square dance in a very Mormon community. So I come from a Catholic background, which was an interesting divide. But it was the only time that these two differences in religion would come together and dance in unity. Was the square dance. I would be able to hold hands and create an experience together and move together in this beautiful, fun, loving way that was uplifting all of us. And I felt this connection of, yeah, we are connected. We're not that different. But one of the things I noticed was people are always dancing about happy things. And it really, as a child who's a deep feeler and deeply connected to and can feel the other people's feelings, I kept wondering, when do we dance about the things that don't feel so good? And I think that that's really where sacred dance, came into my realm. When I look at how did I get into sacred dance, I'm not sure I even knew, right? Really didn't know that it was sacred dance. I grew up on a Ute Indian reservation, and I went to a powwow, and all of a sudden I realized in front of me, they're dancing about the deeper feelings that I have. We lived on the land. We grew our own food. We lived in the seasons. We were terrified when the floods would come. We were happy and joyous when the sun would come again. Nature was an integral part of our lives. And they were dancing about that. They were honoring that. And they were talking about how these feelings that I had for nature that nobody else in my world was talking about. But I didn't get a chance to learn those dances. I just saw, ooh, what is this? This is part of what's missing that's relatable to who I am and what I need. And I didn't get a chance to really engage in sacred dance till 15 years later. And being this deep feeling person, I had a lot of overwhelming feelings because I feel a connection to everything that is. When an animal is suffering, I feel it suffering. And it really started to derail my life. I couldn't finish things. I would get distracted by the feelings of other people. And I really just couldn't accomplish the things I needed to in my life. And I suffered and struggled, for a very long period of time until I came across sacred dance many years later.
But I think that that's really true, that dance, sacred dance, because I think it's conscious dance, really can help us process all these emotions, and that these emotions are sacred, that it isn't just joy that's sacred, but it's grief and all these deeper things. So I think that that's true, that those are the things we touch on, and maybe why it is such a healing modality, because we are allowed to go into those darker places or those, and to have a way to release those things as well, because it is embodied, because we are discharging to the earth, and we have these healing tools that are just part of the whole process.
Yeah, and I think that when we connect to the idea that we're sacred, that our body is a temple of the spirit flowing through, and we're a unique expression of the divine, that when we move and we dance, we're embodying that spirit, and that is a transformative experience in itself, to be in this creative union where we kind of experience grace. This is really another way that I first had my experiences, my direct experiences with the temple body.
Yes.
And
I think that's especially important for women, because we are so embodied.
And I think for me, dance in the natural rhythms body of wisdom, that dance is very feminine. It is part of the feminine gifts that come to the world. And if we don't bring it, and it doesn't mean the feminine only women, the feminine aspect in men can also bring forth the dance, but the dance is the embodiment of all that we are. So it is that union of the masculine and the feminine aspects of ourselves coming together and working together in unity, but it's also that connection to the divine. And I think that what we really see is missing in our world today is the feminine, not women trying to be like men. We don't need to do more of that,
Yeah.
right? It's how can I, prove I'm equal by being like men? No, it's to say, guess what? I'm equal and valuable, just as valuable, because of the feminine that I am, and that what I'm bringing forth and the gifts of the feminine are the balance that we need to see in the world. And that sacred dance is one of the most powerful tools to bring that to the world for women, I believe.
Yes, and the feminine has been lost to everyone, women as well as men, in our consciousness. I think if it was in our consciousness, we wouldn't be able to ruin the planet. You know, we're all doing things that are harmful for the planet, and the planet is our mother. And I think that we've lost that consciousness, and I think sustainability is a big part of that cycle of nature. And we've all become disconnected, whether we're women or men. So I think, that the feminine needs to be brought back into our consciousness, and shouldn't just assume that because someone is a woman that they actually have a very grounded interpretation of what the feminine is, because we've all been brought up in this more masculine, all of our education
Ideal.
and that sort of thing. So I
Yeah.
think that we as women need to be the first ones to recognize that. We need to find it deep within ourselves, embody it, and then we can hopefully take it out into the world.
And I really found that resonance, that same idea, in Natural Rhythms body of work, and that, sacred dance for me became a part of my life through victimization, trying to resolve my experiences with victimization. And so I really see it as a beautiful pathway for everyone to become empowered and conscious of their creative power. But it is a wonderful pathway for liberation. And I think, to me, the feminine is being somewhat liberated right now from a belief system and cultural beliefs that we have allowed to become established over time that are not part of the natural cycle. It's like we say, we leave the masculine part of the cycle functioning all the time. We want progress constantly, movement outward into the world, and we have really pulled away from the feminine aspects of restoration. Most countries in the world have 2 months off on a break. When you come to the United States, you're lucky if you get 2 weeks, and some people don't even get that. And that's a total loss of restoration time. The winter is gone. We dive into consumption and more busyness instead of withdrawing and tuning into, how did this year go? How do I resolve the things that happened this year? And how can I let go of the things that I need to be the person I want to be in my life? That all happens in the winter. So this refinement of our spirit that happens through the feminine isn't happening. It's like, that really, to me, is concerning. And that's part of why I loved Natural Rhythms, is that it's about, and your work too, it's about connecting to the elements and of nature.
Well, and we have to become more embracing of the death cycle, or the letting go. You hear politicians saying that they want to be in a constant state of growth, but that's cancer. That's what cancer does. Cancer just continues to grow and then finally kills the host. We need to bring the death cycle. I call it the death cycle. If that's disturbing to someone, then they could call it the letting go piece. But there has to be the death and the rebirth, and like the moon, you have the dark cycle, the dark phase of the moon, and we need that. And I think that somehow fear has taken us to that place of not wanting to look at the unknown, not wanting to let go, not wanting to think about death, and to have this constant growth mentality, which, as I said, is cancerous. It's, that's going to kill us. And it has. I mean, that, like you're saying, consumption, consumerism, buying new things. I always think about this. If I get a new phone, or other people are changing their phones all the time, I think, no, I don't want to change my phone, because what do I do with the phone that I have? What do I
Yeah.
do with this computer? What do I do with this phone? I have to then dispose of it. So for me, I keep everything until until it actually doesn't work anymore, because I can't stand that thought of now I've created another piece of garbage that
Yes.
has to be disposed of in some way. And that's really disturbing
Yes.
to me. And I know people think I'm crazy. They're like,
Yeah.
there's a new phone and it works better. And yeah, but then what do I do with this one? And
Yes.
I think that, that they're not looking at the destructive part. Like, now, how do I get rid of this? How do I where do I let this go to? And yeah, that's creating a huge problem. And that is very much a part of the feminine, is the dark and the unknown and the death, the death goddess, and that part of the cycle. So we can re-embrace those concepts. Then
re-embrace the cycle itself. It's like, that's really what conscious dance, natural rhythms conscious dance is a big part of it is about, is to say, how can I recognize the natural cycle of life that nature is showing us every day? Nature never stops doing in the cycle.
Yeah.
We have become disconnected so much from the earth, and that we are part of it and we're an expression of it, that we just want progress all the time. Number one, we live in an economy where money is most important, and making money constantly can only happen by staying in a constant state of progression, instead of what we used to do. And what we did on the ranch is we canned our food, and we didn't there's nothing to harvest. The ground is frozen.
Yeah.
We rested, we turned inward, we slowed down. The drifts were 20-foot drifts. There were weeks we didn't go anywhere. And because people don't live in the seasons often now, they're living in cities of, temperate, environments, we've lost this connection to, there is a time when things die. We love youth, right? Our culture loves youth. It doesn't want to acknowledge the aging process, so that we have no sacred connection, and we don't love and honor and want to move into any of the other stages and later stages of life. We devalue ourselves the minute we start to move into any of these places. We dye our hair, we do this, we do all these things. I worked in the beauty industry for a very long time. Yeah. We do lots of things to ourselves, but it is this disconnection from loving and honoring. These are the beautiful parts of life. And it's really just from the feminine. The Ashwar people, indigenous Ashwar people, say, this is the Western woman's problem. She's allowed the man to continue to consume. And in the Ashwar culture, the woman's job is to tell the men how many resources to go get. Go get me 2 fish and a log of wood to make blankety blank. That's all we need. Go get that. Not go cut down the forest. And because what they really are saying to us is, you need to tell the men to stop. It's your job.
And I think that's true.
Yeah. And it's a different philosophy, but it's an indigenous philosophy. And that's also what I love about natural rhythms and sacred dance in general, is we connect to back, both of us and many other forms of sacred dance are connecting back to this wisdom of nature. It's right here. The divine is expressed right here in nature. And these are ways that we can reconnect and bring an acceptance and see the value of these aspects of life back to the world. Really, the women, that's why I say, the feminine leadership revolution. We can revolutionize the way our culture is occurring right now. And what's amazing to me is that sacred dance could be used for this. For those who love to dance, this is a calling. If you feel, I love dance, why can't I do something that I love with dance? Yes, you can. You can even make a living doing it. And you can completely transform our culture doing it. So it's very exciting for me because, growing up in an environment with indigenous people, I saw their suffering and I saw their disempowerment. And I see the way that dance has been utilized in culture through my education also as a dancer in my degree. I began to study all the dances of all the sacred dances of all the different countries, the Bharatanatyam, and dancing it and learning it from the master dancers from India and, African dances and all of those things. And one of the things I learned when I dove into that history was that dance, especially sacred dance, has been used to establish and maintain culture for thousands of years. Thousands of years. You touch on a beautiful piece of that in your work. But what this meant to me was, wow, I see that not only is sacred dance an art, because it's absolutely gorgeous and breathtaking expression, but it's also the art of creating reality. The reality we live in right now, the culture we live in, is our artistic experience, and that sacred dance was used in cultures to embody the qualities of and values of the culture. And then these dances were taught to the children, so the children embodied, even if they didn't consciously understand, these qualities. Look at the waltz and some of these things that aren't even sacred, considered sacred dance. The man has a certain role, the woman has a certain role. But where I see the power of cultural change and that can happen through dance, I think it's really clear to see when you look at indigenous culture and what happened here in the US is that they made it illegal. Our government made it illegal for the indigenous people to do their sacred dances when they wanted to eradicate the culture and integrate them.
They knew where to hit.
Wow. And many other rulers who've taken over other countries in the world did the exact same thing. They actually annihilated and slaughtered the sacred dancers in many cultures. And you know what they did next? They went and created a whole new set of sacred dancers that were dancing dances of the culture they wanted to now impose upon the people. And so what I see in this is that we've lost connection as dancers, that the dance has this much power, you know, that the ballet was used to really control the men and women of the courts. If you didn't dance well, you didn't get to go to court.
Yeah.
You know, it has power. So let's use it. Let's dive into what is this power and see what we can use it for. And I think for me, not only is it incredible transformation, cultural transformation that we can do, but it's personal transformation on a level that so many people need. When I was, I didn't have sacred dance for many years. I suffered in my emotional despair for a very long time. And when I finally stopped dancing, because we moved from Utah to California, we didn't have the money for dance lessons anymore, I totally lost myself. My power started to diminish in me. My sense of who I am just started to completely disappear, because my way of expressing my power and harnessing my power, I stopped doing it. And within 2 years, I had become so worthless in my feeling sense of myself that I was taken advantage of and raped as an adolescent. And what happened is I concluded, wow, if someone would do this to me, then I must not matter. And I made this conclusion. And belief is a big part of the creative process, right? We're dancing about beliefs. Well, my belief just became, I don't matter. So I spiraled into an abyss of worthlessness and despair that was going to end up leading me into suicide. And I finally just went, I'm Catholic, I can't commit suicide. I need to ask God, show me the way out of this despair. And it was interesting. I just went to a workshop with a friend who's also victimized, and we learned about the creative process. How do we create our lives? And I discovered that I'd really rooted this belief. And when I pulled that belief out and went, this is the cause of my pain, my emotional pain is this belief, I replaced it with the belief I had before, that I am a sacred creation. I'm valued because I am a sacred creation in the image of the divine. And as soon as I went back to that belief of my religious tradition, things changed very, very quickly. I came out of this chaos and this crazy victimization cycle where I had no power at all, and found myself moving again. Boom, I was right back to dancing. I was filling my body with this power from this belief, and I could feel it. I noticed, I looked back and I went, I was using dance as a transformative experience to reclaim my power. I was turning on songs that resonated with this belief. I was doing movements that made me feel power, that strengthened my core, that helped me open up my body and express that I belong here. When I belong here and I have something to say. And it came through the dance and embodying deeply that belief. And it really took me back to a place of, wow, so now that I matter, why am I here? And so I went to a spiritual director my mom knew, and I said, the woman had never met me, and I said, I want to know what my spiritual gift is because I want to know what I'm here to do. And she said, well, it's dance. This woman did not know me. This woman could directly hear from spirit. And I was kind of, oh, really, Mom? And that's what she said. And I was blown away. And I just went, wow, that's incredible. I'm going to follow that. And I found Jose Limon's technique, modern dance technique, which is, he's really comes strongly out of his faith. He's Catholic faith, but he is also, you know, a modern dancer who was creating his own technique that was about the fall and recovery of the body in relationship to the earth. So I learned how to fall and recover, how to be in harmony and relationship with the truth of the way we are in the world. You know, a lot of dances try to escape gravity and act like we can fly out into the infinity, you know, into nowhere. But this dance was about surrendering to the truth of who we are. And I went to a dance workshop to see, okay, God, if this is really the direction I'm supposed to go, show me. I'm going to go and take this workshop. I was terrible at it. I was absolutely terrible. I couldn't do half of this movement. I had to perform this incredible piece with amazing dancers in 1 week. I get to the last day. I can't keep timing. I'm afraid I'm going to run into people. We are so close together in this dance. It's beautiful. It's breathtaking. I feel so incapable. And I went, am I really meant to do this? And I remember being on the side of the stage and just, my mother is there and my sister's there and all the people who run this dance program are judging me. Is she going to come here, right? And I just went, God, if I'm meant to be here, I just surrender. I surrender. I need your grace. Let your spirit be with me. Show me, help me in this moment. If I'm not meant to be here, then it's not your will. If I can't do this dance, then maybe it's not your will. But I just surrender to you moving through the body right now. And it was the very first time I experienced the body as the temple of the spirit. I learned about it a lot when I was a child, but it was incredible. It was not me in my body. I mean, I was still there, but I really felt like I wasn't even doing the movement. All of a sudden, I was in the right timing and swinging and falling and rising with everyone else. And I was joyful. And I was like, I can't believe I'm getting this right now. This is phenomenal. And I was able to stop focusing on the steps, because finally I was having this experience of harmony in the dance that my true essence started to come through. But so for me, that was a message. This is your path. And the only way it is your path, and the only way you step into the deepest desires of your heart of bringing forth what your calling is in the world, is through grace. And that surrender to the spirit that provides the grace that bridges the gap between what I'm capable of doing as a human being and what I'm called to do. And so that's how that leap happened for me the first time. And it's become the heart and base of my faith in my life. And so I went, wow, what is this? What is this experience? And I still at the time didn't know what it was. And so it's, sacred dance is something that snuck up on me through different experiences. I'm not sure, that probably happens to different people who engage in dance. But, the main things that I got to do from that time frame was just to say, I've got to explore what happened here between me using movement with this belief and aligning my emotions and finding my power after that victimization. And then now I'm having this, being able to step into my path through grace. It was like I was finally able to bring my gifts to the world. And that to me is what the feminine leadership revolution through natural rhythms dance facilitation is about. It's about us bringing our gifts to the world and discovering them and coming into harmony with spirit so that we can bring all of these gifts. You're bringing your beautiful gifts to the world, and that we can also bring, cultural change through this experience as leaders, because what we learn how to do in natural rhythms is become the sovereign, reclaim your sovereign power and be the leader of your own life. Well, once you can do that, you can lead other people. And so
But I
some of
think
those,
that's a really important point, is that you have to find your own center. I mean, that's one
oh
of
yeah.
the things that, because in the dance that I teach, we, at least in the beginning, are not moving around the room. But
Mm-hmm.
I keep saying you have to find your own center before you can move that center around into space.
Beautiful.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's an important point, because we need to be empowered. We need to find that center within ourselves, because again, then we're not knocked over every time something happens. And
Mm-hmm.
then we can first be an example, but then also we can find a way to move in the space without the space impacting us in a way that
Yeah.
that knocks us down or throws us off
Yeah.
our center,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we each, come into this sense of sovereign power in our own experience. I just think that sacred dance is an incredible pathway. I love the work that you're doing in the Wisdom Through the Wild and Beyond courses that I do. It's about the wisdom that we gain through the wildest times of our lives, these dark times. And you're really talking about that, about what do we do when the storms come to our lives. And one of the things that I do that I don't use a ton of dance in. I use some of the other modalities that I use for a program that's called Calm in the Storm. And I would love to connect with you to say, wow, you're doing some things that help embody being calm in the storm. And this is the kind of connections I see can happen.
Mm-hmm.
We can join together, women all over the world, and support each other's work and bring this work on new levels to each other and to the world, and inspire one another and uplift one another so that we can do this work. And, so I think tapping into that truth of, reconnecting to, wow, dance can create cultural change is huge. And, I think for me, it's just the combination of the two that is so powerful, that individual sovereign power, then the power to co-create collectively and learn how to do that through sacred dance is something that I've loved about natural rhythms, is that
Yeah.
we come together. And I think
And
that you
that's
also,
also a big part of the feminine, is this concept of community, which I think that is something that has again been lost. We've become so competitive that
mm-hmm,
we've lost that sense of community. And that is really important, I think especially for women. And
mm-hmm,
that was just always our way. In indigenous cultures, you always have women coming together and raising children, or doing whatever needs to be done. But
mm-hmm,
that for me is a big piece, especially at this point in my life, is to be able to connect with other women. And that's a big
mm-hmm.
part of this summit, even, is to be able to connect to other women and to bring these pieces together. So I hope that that's going to be something that's going to become more prevalent, is this sense of, but a real sense of community. I see
Yes.
I see circles. It's like everybody has a circle, but nobody's circles are coming together. I find that I'm starting a full moon circle. Okay, and I'm starting a full moon circle, and I'm starting a and it's
Yes.
like, well, that's not, I mean, the point is to create community, and community means we all come together. We don't all start our own circles somewhere else. So I
Yeah.
think even that concept of community has to be, I think we just need to get used to it. Maybe we've become disconnected in this competitive world, and maybe we just need to
Yeah.
become
Mm-hmm.
more familiar with what that means to have a community.
Yeah, and don't you think that that's somewhat really related to the dominance in our culture on the masculine?
Yeah.
That we're taught to avoid so many of the things that are feminine, that we're traditionally feminine. How can you be competitive in the market if you're joined together with everyone? They're opposites. The feminine and the masculine represent the balance of life, right? So if we're always only in competition, competition's great for the warrior. It's great for the strengthening of our spirit, right? To go out in the world and be our own individual self. But there's also that love and nurturing that we all need, that connection. Do we all belong? Yes. How can we live that truth? how do we all belong? If I'm Catholic and everyone around me is Mormon and I'm not good enough, how can we still belong? And I found it in the dance.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting? It's like something is transcended when we move into the dance. And I think that that's something that we can do. And that's really what is happening with the feminine leadership revolution with natural rhythms. The whole point is to establish, sovereign power of women and equality, economic equality. Well, how does that happen? We've got to stop acting like men. We have to start embracing the value of the feminine and say, guess what? I can create just as successful business, joining together with my sisters and teaching all the feminine wisdom in the world to change our culture and make business run in a feminine model. Mm-hmm. And there are women doing it today. And we can all do this. And we can, yes, I think you're really touching on something that hasn't completely manifest yet that we need to become conscious of, is that greater community. Yes, how do we each thrive better and have that financial power? Because power in our world right now is very interrelated with money and abundance. And we've kind of thrown away our own way to
into it. Yeah. No, I think so. And I think that the people to bring other concepts besides the concept of money to the forefront or find different paradigms are going to be women. There's infinite ways. We don't all have to be reliant on money. There's different types of abundance and different types of power. And
there's the cycle, right? What if we just embrace the feminine in the cycle? Let's just do that. That means that businesses stop and slow down in the winter, right? And that we prepare, that we save.
Yeah.
And we use our resources differently and more wisely. And, we don't plunder the earth. We live in harmony with it. That will dramatically change our sense of abundance.
Yeah.
If I can get strawberries all year long, my love or my appreciation of strawberries reduces dramatically.
Mm-hmm. We don't. In Egypt, we live in cycles.
I love it.
It's very different. And I think that been a big part of my journey was to leave Western culture and to see that there is another way to do it. I don't think I ever knew a real matriarch until I met my mother-in-law. And it's like, wow, she never worked. She never even finished school, but boy, she was the head of the family. And I think that to see that, I needed to step out, I guess, in order to see that. But I think that's why it is important to look at the past and to look at the indigenous cultures, because there are infinite ways to do things. And we've been brainwashed that technology is advancement. And that's not, and now we know, no, wait, the ancients actually knew what they were talking about, and they did things in a more sustainable way or a more sacred way. And, I think that that probably is our attraction to looking back or looking at these other cultures. But I hope that we can continue to embrace that, and that women, or everyone, but we're talking mainly to women, I think, will step out and step into something else to see that there are infinite ways to do things. I want to come back just briefly to something that you said. You were talking about your experience of this surrender, and when you were doing this workshop and you were going to do this performance, that what you had, that allowing the divine in. I think that this is, I want to go back to this because possibly a lot of people haven't had this experience, but to me, that's kind of how I would define sacred dance, is when you become the vessel and you let the divine move through you. And I think for me, what happens is always so much greater than what you can imagine. That I think that maybe people are afraid to surrender or have that need to control things. But as you said in your experience that you had, when you did that, when you said, I don't know what I'm doing, you've got, you come through and you make it happen, that something much greater than what you could have imagined actually did happen. And I see that constantly is that thing that it's not me pushing my boundaries, it's me actually relaxing and letting go of control, because in our minds, we think we know where the edges are, but we don't. And if you allow yourself to surrender, all of a sudden you find that, wow, the edges are actually way out there. They're not in here where I thought they were. And I think this is such a profound experience. And it is something that's really difficult to communicate. I think you did it beautifully, but to me, that's how I would define sacred dance. Not that we need to define it or that we need to reduce it in any way, but for people who haven't had that experience, that's what I would always encourage. I think, to allow yourself to become this vessel, and, in a safe space to do that, but to really have that experience of being taken over by something that's greater than yourself. And I think as women, we are the vessel just through our biology, so that we do have the capacity to allow that to happen if we maybe with a little guidance.
Yeah, and I think that men who have the masculines in the dominance of the way our cultures are being run in most of the world, men do have there's an expectation upon them that they have to be powerful. They have to be in control, not honoring the feminine aspects within themselves. So it's not always the women, it is the men honoring the feminine within themselves too, to be able to say, when is the time that the men rest? When is the time when we let go of control and we let something greater help us and stop having to be in control of everything? It's interesting you mentioned this, because I think as we move into this surrender and spirit takes us to a place that beyond those edges and what we thought we were doing, sometimes the longings of our hearts are completely fulfilled on a level we can't imagine. And one of the ways that happened for me exponentially and unexpectedly is I grew up seeing the decimation of the native cultures. In my work, I want to utilize their wisdom to help restore the conscious respect and honor of these beliefs and these cultures, for these people to reclaim their place in our society as the elders who know the way. And that by doing that, my thing in my heart was, oh, wow, I want to make sure that the young leaders of these indigenous tribes are finding their power, are stepping into their callings and not getting lost in consumerism and being told what to do by Western society. And something ended up happening after this surrender, and I got really into conscious dance. I started having shamanic experiences again and again of having the spirit take over the body. And I was at a Natural Rhythms conscious dance facilitator training, and we were dancing to a piece of Hawaiian music. And my personal experience was that a whale entered the room with me, and that we were in the sea together. And I was just overwhelmed with this sense of this huge animal in the room with me. It was just unbelievable, the sense that I had in the dance. I was embodying and finding myself in Polynesian rhythms and movements that I had never learned. And I went, what is this about? Interesting. What is this Hawaiian message about? And we finished this conscious dance experience of moving through the elements, and that was in the water element. And I journaled about it. Okay, the whale came, and I looked up the medicine of the whale. And then, I looked at, what are these dances and what is this about? There's something about Hawaii here. And I just left it at that. Okay, that's all Spirit's going to tell me. So I feel like, okay, I surrendered myself as a vessel of this process, and this is what came through in this one experience. Well, I go home and I join a shamanic group to learn more about shamanism, because I feel like am I having a shamanic experience? I want to learn more about what's happening to me. And I end up meeting the leader of a young man who is emerging in the Hawaiian culture as an indigenous leader. And his story was so amazing. And I just went, wow, here's this guy from Hawaii. And he tells me the most amazing experiences he has with nature and how nature is speaking to him and how his ancestors are speaking to him through nature in the old traditions of Hawaii, in their spiritual traditions. He's having personal experiences of these and is feeling very odd and very weird and doesn't want to tell anyone about it. And so that's why he's in this special group, right? And we're hiding. We're like, we can't tell anyone about any of these weird experiences we're having. And so this is a sacred space that's been created. And I realized, wow, this is a beautiful sacred space where we can talk about the divine things that are happening to us that not everyone else understands. And I feel that that's some of the work that we have to do in the world, is create that kind of space. And he reached out to me. I didn't share much. He reached out to me and said, my ancestors told me that I'm supposed to meet with you. And the white woman from Santa Cruz. And I was like, okay, oh my gosh, why does this guy want to talk to me? And we got on the phone together and he told me about his journey. He is the last living heir of King Kamehameha's family. He is a hidden part of the bloodline because King Kamehameha was originally married to his sister, which was unacceptable in Western culture. So they forced King to toss that wife to the side, but they still had a daughter together. And he is the descendant of that daughter. And he is the last living male heir to the sacred lands in Hawaii. So he's been called, he had a near-death experience, and he saw his mother when he crossed the veil, and he died for a couple minutes. And she said, but you have something to do, don't you? We have something for you to do. Go back and bring aloha back to the people. And so when he came back alive, he said, I have to surrender my life to this. He was a very successful man, but he was very brokenhearted because his culture had been completely stripped from him as a child. And so he was looking for his way. Wow. Okay, who am I? And he started tracing his lineage, and he discovered who he really was, because he and his family had been hidden all over the different islands in different ways for many, many years. And he said that he felt a lot of discord within himself when he fell into his ancestors and needing to teach and reconnect to the traditions, that there was a lot of discord in the history. There was a lot of disconnection and warring between the different Polynesian, leaders and the sacred matriarchs and the kings, and that he felt that he couldn't, how can I return to something that is chaotic? And so he said, well, the ancestors told me that you can help me with this inner unity. And I was like, okay. So I drove out to Vallejo in California, where he was, and we followed an apparition in the sky of clouds, a certain sign he saw in the clouds. And he said, just follow that. And I drove there. And we ended up at the sacred burial mound of the Brokenhearted, of the indigenous people who lived in that area. And as we climbed up this hill, there were symbols all over the place of his journey. And I mean, it was an incredible experience. It would take too long to tell you the whole thing, but we went up this hill. We found ourselves at a sacred burial mound of the brokenhearted, which is what he had and his people have, a broken heart over losing their spiritual connection and the manifestation of it on the earth, and living it, being able to live it and live in aloha, the true spirit of aloha. And when we hiked up to the top of the hill, I just saw this tree and I went, I think you're supposed to sit in this tree. And it was like the heart of a tree, and he was sitting inside here. And I just felt the spirit was saying he needs to sit here. And when I said, I'm not sure what's going to happen here, I burned some sage and I just said, Spirit, what is it that I can help him with? And within a short period of time, I felt another person in my body. And it was an older woman. And I just described it to him. And I said, she's small, and this is how she moves her body. And I felt her in me, and I described it to him, and I did the movements of that. And then her voice started to come through, and she had a message of love and support for him. And then I moved into the other aspects of the tree, the branches, and I sensed there was something else in another branch. And I moved over and I went, what is it that's here? And as I stayed and waited, ancestors of his in the Polynesian culture emerged in my body through Tahitian dance and all different sacred dances that I didn't know. And I just would go into the movement and he said, oh, that is the dance of blankety blank ancestor. And I said, well, the feeling that she's bringing is ABC, whatever it was. And he received messages through me. A warrior of the tribe, of the tradition, showed up. King Kamehameha came through, and all of it was about, we love you. We are not in discord anymore. This is your purpose. You have all of our support. Please know that we're completely behind you and that we're all in unity now and in spirit, in our spiritual form, and that you have our blessing to move forward. And so that experience is one of the ways, the real miraculous ways, that spirit begins to use us to bring forth change on the planet. And sometimes we're not going to understand, like you're saying, the edges of what we think we're supposed to do in the world and how we're going to do it. We can't even comprehend. Spirit's going to bring that to us through that experience you were just talking about. Yeah, through that surrender.
Yeah. And that the message may be for somebody else, that if we can allow ourselves to embody something and again work together with other people, we may bring through things that actually belong to other people.
Yeah. And to not be afraid of it, to know that this is how we live in unity, in sacred unity. So for me, natural rhythms was just kind of, I experienced this transformation in my own life and experienced it, but I didn't know how to duplicate it. I didn't know how to practice it every day because I knew the things that I loved and that worked, but I really didn't know how to recreate these experiences for myself. So when I sought out conscious dance and went, I need to be able to do this, natural rhythms kind of stood out because of the indigenous wisdom in its base, and that I had the same transformative experiences when I danced it. And so I think for me, and I related to this feminine leadership revolution, I wanted to join it. I wanted to bring my voice to the world, and maybe some other women who are here, are relating to this. And, one of the beautiful things, I wanted to quote Lisa Michaels, who created natural rhythms, for a moment, just together the elements of earth, water, air, fire, and spirit weave the fabric of our world together while actively functioning as teachers of consciousness. That this is the living energy of creation, and that it's in us. The earth is our body, the water is our emotions, the air is our mental realm, right? Fire is our action, and the spirit is our unique essence flowing through all of these things, working in unity. And that these ideas are really, I see that leaders who are yoga instructors and sacred activists who want to see change in the world and have groups of people who are following them, any type of teacher, any type of holistic practitioner, anyone who does a healing modality where you have patients and you have people that you influence, this sacred dance is a group experience that you can use to create personal transformation in the sacredness of community, where we feel safe enough, held by another in the feminine container that can allow for healing in community, not just over here hiding by myself in a room where I'm private. It's private and it's hidden from the world that I'm in pain. Let's embrace that life has ups and downs, and let's help one another consciously and openly through it, through the feminine. And that it can be, one of the things I loved about it was there's templates that are already pre-created, that are already created, that I could just take my topic of stress relief and ease and insert it into a template that was the elements that, the part of the elements that teach about what's in nature. What does nature have to teach us about balance? And so I can turn to this wisdom in nature and say, wow, how is nature doing it? And I can actually give people experiences with nature that create an affinity for nature, a love for nature, and we reconnect to the reality that we are nature. It is us and we are it. And that my body, right, is the earth. And this kind of sacred holding of ourselves and the earth and creation is what can transform this world and bring it back into a place of balance and bring us out of the chaos. Chaos is a normal part of the cycle. Right? It's okay. It's okay. We're in chaos right now.
And it's the feminine. I mean, that, and what we need is coherence. We need that balance between order and chaos, which is the
Yeah,
masculine and the feminine. Yeah. Maybe you
beautiful.
can explain a little bit what natural rhythms conscious dance is, just sort of as a
Yeah,
practice, or well, you, however you would like to put that.
yeah. Well, natural rhythms is a body of wisdom that's about life, the creation of life. How do we create life? And natural rhythms conscious dance facilitation and this dance practice is a part of how we learn to create. It's a way of teaching that is utilizing the body and dance. We're dancing the sacred creation of our life. So we're really learning about the wisdom, indigenous wisdom in nature. We're looking at the wisdom in the elements, in the aspects of ourselves, and we're able to say, what can I learn from this? So conscious dance is an experience in natural rhythms, is an experience of moving through the elements, engaging with the elements, and learning about what are the gifts that come from the air element in the mental realm. How can nature teach us about how we can live our best life? Having really deep breathing, utilizing breathing practices, all the medicine that the earth has to share with us and all the indigenous traditions are instilled inside the natural rhythms body of work. And as a conscious dancer, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, I want to teach a class on a certain subject, and I'm going to take us through an experience of the elements, their unique individual qualities, which are my qualities. How is your body and your physical life doing right now? And let's look at the earth and see how we manage, how does the earth manage its physicality? And, let's look at the air element and say, how is my mental state doing? Is it in alignment with what I really need to learn? And am I holding beliefs that are really helpful? And as we dance, we become conscious of what we want to grow around in these different areas, in the air and the fire and the earth elements. In these elements, we take something that we're intentionally focusing on, that we want to transform in our lives, where we want to understand, and we dive into a little bit of the wisdom of natural rhythms of nature, and then we embody that. And sometimes we do an exploration in that to say, what is going on in the air element, and I'm just going to do the surrender and open up to spirit showing me, what do I need to know in this about my mental realm, or about my actions, or about my spiritual essence and the way I make choices, or about how I take care of my body. I'm going to surrender into the dance to be a vessel where I can receive the messages of what I need right now. And through these experiences, as I've explained, kind of shared what's happened to me, that's what happens to people who do this practice, is that we begin to hear the spirit's messages flowing through. We begin to have these integrated experiences with spirit, and we cultivate a really beautiful connection with the earth and nature again, in a way that is just so needed in our culture right now. I love that it's something anyone can do. It's not about being a perfect dancer, right? It's like your work. It's just being present in the body and recognizing that this is a temple, and that it's all valued. Every aspect of our being is valuable and a precious gift to the world and to ourselves and to others, right? And how can we step into that knowingness of our sacredness? And these are ways that we can give people experiences, whether someone's a yoga instructor and they want to incorporate learning more about the elements and maybe have some free form movement instead of being in postures, and in more traditional yoga. Or maybe it's a therapist who is only using talk therapy and not using physical integration,
Yeah.
because everything happens here. It doesn't just happen here. That's part of what's wrong with the world, is
Yes,
we're up
we need
here
to
all
get
the
out
time.
of our heads. Exactly. No,
Because
and it
there's
is. It's
wisdom.
beautiful because
Yeah.
it can be used with any modality, or
Mhm.
in different kinds of workshops. I think that's
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
nice thing, is that it's a nice piece to a lot of other things as well.
And we even have dances and workshops that are about money. and exploring, well, did you know that, returning to these indigenous beliefs and that money is sacred. Where did money originally come from? And that it's our interpretation and vilifying of money. We've done that. Money is just energy. Money is my most prized harvest of strawberries. That's money. And I'm just going to come over everything I've cultivated and I'm going to share it and trade it with you for your best, whatever. And maybe it's not even the best. Maybe it's just all of it is a gift. Even the fruit that is got a little bruise on it, right? That money is representative of our gifts being shared in the world. And so really, I love that Natural Rhythms begins to transform our beliefs about money too, to say, what does the feminine have to bring and offer in the conversation about money? And I think it's world transformation. I think that that's what we have and can bring forth through learning something like Natural Rhythms and utilizing sacred dance in each of our unique ways. And so I think that for me, that's what I was so attracted to. It's ability. It's a huge community also of people who are bringing their gifts to the world, which I think is, a tribal experience of, oh my gosh, what are your gifts and how are they emerging? And some people are painters and some people are doctors. There was someone was a CPA and they used Natural Rhythms to teach their clients about how to manage their budgets. And I loved it. And how to manage their resources, because we have to learn how to manage the resources of the earth, don't we?
Yeah. Yes.
And the way,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And to be able to bring a sense of consciousness and sacredness to that is what Natural Rhythms conscious dance and the greater body of work allows us to learn how to do. So, yeah.
So let's talk about some of the up and coming things that you have going on, because you're going to be doing some facilitating.
Yes. Yeah. So I have an ongoing monthly gathering that's a deep dive journey into a Natural Rhythms experience for a community that I do each month. And that's available to people who are in the area. But what I really am excited to be doing is more virtual aspects, virtual experiences of this. I'll be doing a really more public, bigger one for April's International Dance Week. And I'm going to be giving people an experience, a whole journey of a day, so that we can go through what would it be like to be in a workshop and how could you integrate it into your work and see what it would feel like. Experience the transformation yourself in the process, and then to say, wow, how can I integrate the topics that I love and I want to teach about. So I'll be doing that in April, and everyone will get an invitation to that who decides to jump in and check out the free gifts that I have to offer. But the other thing is that this program, to become a facilitator of this work and be that leader, to be a woman in the revolution, to become certified in it, is to me what I really am here to do, because I want to see more women in the world doing this work. And we have a version that's online. So later, after April, we're going to be introducing how you can become certified through an online program and through video like you and I are doing. We're going to work with conscious dance and have that experience virtually. And then I also have in October, let me double check the dates, the 9th through the 13th, I do a deep dive in person in Santa Cruz, right inside the elements integration. And here we're going to go out into the sea. We're going to sit around the fire. We're going to bury ourselves in the dirt. We're going to really dive into the elements on a visceral level. And you get to discover your inner facilitator. Find that leader within. What does your voice sound like? How do you use conscious dance? What is your gift, and how are you bringing it to the world? And so really it's a deep, emergence, and then you emerge as the leader from it. And it's a chance for us to be in person, and conscious dance is really, it's meant to be done in the flesh, right?
Yes. That would be very nice to be dancing with everyone else. I obviously am a big promoter of online courses, but yes, there's nothing like actually being with other women and dancing together and having that experience. So that's a nice addition to the program. Yeah.
In person includes the online. so that we have both experiences.
Yeah.
of-
No, I think they both have their place, but let's
Yeah.
not forget the the human experience.
The physical body. We cannot do that. We are sacred dancers.
So tell us a little bit about the free offer that you have for people.
Yeah. So, you may be joining us on a personal level of how can I find a practice that I can do in my own life, which you can do this practice at home. And or you may be a leader who is wanting to integrate this. And so I wanted to give you a gift that would give you the experience of both. So this isn't a gift that will let you experience the transformative power on both levels. And it's what I call it my creative power guide. And this is basically 4 steps to begin the path of liberation from stress to ease. And I wanted to give you this kind of gift so that you can see how I use conscious dance in my own gift, and how I was able to find that stress and ease is one of the topics of creation. It's one of the topics of creating our lives. It is part of our universal experience. And so I was able to integrate this topic inside the structure of a natural rhythms class. So through this download PDF, it's connected to some videos so that we can do some movement with each step, but you'll be able to experience, wow, how can I transform myself in regard to stress and ease if you're feeling that, and see how dance can help you do that. And then also say, well, how can I take a modality that I'm teaching or topic that I'm teaching on, a problem I'm solving in the world, and utilize it. So it's both of those things.
That's great. That's a beautiful gift. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll leave people there. They can download the PDF and have their own personal experience. And thank you for joining me. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It's been incredible. I did forget to mention that when people work with me through Wisdom Through the Wild and Beyond and utilize conscious dance and decide to participate with us, that I give contributions back to the Navajo Water Project, which brings fresh water to Indigenous people here in the US. And so that's something you get to be contributing to, a change you get to be contributing to when you, join in the tribe. So thank you, Leslie. And I'm excited to, hear all the other people on the summit. What are they going to bring and tell us about sacred dance and the power of it? And I thank everyone for taking the time to, join with us today.
Yes. Thank you, Angela. And thank you to the listeners. Bye-bye.
Bye.